country that called to change the format of the meeting to close consultations. We were not one of the initiator countries, but obviously I think that the situation is grave and warranted a meeting of the Security Council. And unfortunately, in the period ahead, I imagine we're going to have many more meetings. But the Security Council is focused. We had a very sobering briefing from Tor Wensland of the situation on the ground, both in Gaza and the occupied Palestinian territory, and of course in Israel itself, where they have sustained a large number of casualties as well. So I think the situation is stark, and the council members are highly concerned, but we understand that right now we're in a very dynamic situation and a complex situation and in a state of flux, and that all council members have to use both their international but also their bilateral channels to try and call for calm and de-escalation with a focus and a priority around the protection of civilians on both sides.
Ambassador, was there any talk of returning to any kind of talks?
I think some council members mentioned that the lack of a political horizon is something that needed to be addressed in the future, but I think everyone understands that today the situation is one of grave concern, that there are a number of dynamic elements in play, that the protection of civilians is a priority, that the hostages needed to be released unconditionally. So I think those are the elements right now in this very dynamic and fluid situation. Clearly in the future, many members of the council believe that a political horizon leading to the two-state solution is the only way to finally solve this conflict. I think council members were also concerned about the potential for regional inflammation and spillover, and so it's clear that we have to do everything we can to prevent that from all other fronts around Israel and the OPT.
Ambassador, you talked about protection of civilians. Do you, and the Israelis have their army that is protecting them, but what about Palestinians who are under occupation? Did the council discuss that even, how to protect Palestinian civilians, how to put pressure on Israelis for that?
I think the council very clearly discussed the applicability of international humanitarian law in this situation, the protection of civilians under the Geneva Conventions. The point about proportionate response was also discussed, but clearly right now the focus for Israel is its own security needs and the fact that it has hostages being held in the Gaza Strip that should be released.
The UAE has relations with Israel, good relations. How are you using your influence with them to protect Palestinians?
I would say the UAE is using its relationships with all sides to try and call for calm and de-escalation. Our president, as you will see on our websites today, has had numerous calls with world leaders, regional leaders, including the Israelis, to call for calm and de-escalation, and we'll continue to do what we can. But I think there are other regional players, of course, who have important roles to play in this regard, and what we need to lead to right now is a ceasefire, an end to the violence, and the resumption of negotiations down the line. But we're not at that state yet, as you can imagine.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you so much, Ambassador.
Thank you.
You can follow me for a chat. Anyone can follow me.